The harsh winds of Epsilon 9 whipped across the barren research outpost, carrying fine crystalline particles that sparkled like frozen dreams against the twin moons hanging low in the lavender sky. Dr. Rowan Mitchell adjusted her environmental suit, her breath creating small clouds of condensation inside her helmet. Another day of seemingly futile research, another day of searching for something, anything, that might prove humanity's worth in this vast, indifferent universe. Her fingers traced the holographic data panels, tracking microscopic variations in the planet's atmospheric composition. Most would have called it a waste of time, but Rowan had never been one to follow conventional wisdom. As a xenobiologist who had spent the last decade on the fringes of human exploration, she knew that breakthrough moments often came when everyone else had given up hope. A sudden electrical charge in the air made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. The instruments began to fluctuate wildly, their calibrated readings dancing erratically across her display. Something was coming. Before she could engage the outpost's defensive protocols, a shimmering disruption appeared directly in front of her research station. It wasn't a traditional transport signature, no energy trails, no predictable molecular breakdown. This was something entirely different. As the shimmer coalesced, a figure emerged. Tall, impossibly slender, with skin that seemed to shift between translucent blue and a metallic silver. Large, almond-shaped eyes that held an intelligence far beyond human comprehension fixed directly on Rowan. "You are not what we expected," the being said, its voice resonating not through sound waves, but directly within Rowan's mind. Rowan stood her ground, years of training preventing her from showing the mixture of terror and fascination bubbling just beneath her professional exterior. "And who exactly are we?" she responded, keeping her tone neutral. The alien's form seemed to ripple, a visual representation of what might have been amusement. "I am Vendra of the Zoriax Collective. Your presence here is unexpected." Rowan's scientific curiosity began to override her initial shock. The Zoriacs were legendary, a species spoken of in hushed whispers among Xena researchers, but never directly encountered. Rumors spoke of their advanced genetic manipulation capabilities, their near-mythical technological prowess. "Unexpected how?" Rowan asked, taking a careful step forward. "This is a designated research outpost. My credentials are fully authorized by the Interstellar Exploration Commission." Vendra's head tilted slightly, a gesture that seemed both familiar and completely alien. "Authorization means little when the very purpose of your presence is misunderstood. You search for something, but you do not yet comprehend what it is you seek." The cryptic statement hung in the air between them, a challenge and an invitation. Rowan felt something shift, not just in the atmosphere of the research station, but in the fundamental understanding of her mission. Little did she know that this unexpected encounter would alter the course of not just her research, but the future of two entire species. "I'm listening," Rowan said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Explain." The diplomatic shuttle hummed with an underlying tension that even the most advanced noise cancellation technology couldn't suppress. Rowan sat rigidly, her standard-issue research uniform feeling uncomfortably formal compared to the fluid, almost living attire of Vendra, who sat across from her. Director Cole, a towering figure of the Zoriac's diplomatic corps, had personally arranged this unprecedented journey. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the ambient light, creating prismatic reflections that danced across the shuttle's interior. Every movement suggested a carefully calculated precision that spoke to centuries of diplomatic training. "Dr. Mitchell," Cole-Nayar's mental communication carried a tone of cautious intrigue, "your presence here defies multiple protocols of first contact procedures." Rowan chose her words carefully. "With all due respect, Director, the traditional protocols have rarely yielded meaningful scientific breakthroughs. My research has always been about pushing boundaries." Vendra's form seemed to shimmer slightly, a reaction Rowan was beginning to recognize as the Zoriac's equivalent of a subtle smile. Their initial encounter on Epsilon 9 had been more than a chance meeting. Something deeper was at play, a connection that neither fully understood. The shuttle approached a massive orbital station that defied human architectural comprehension. Organic yet mechanical, it appeared to breathe and pulse with an internal rhythm. Structural elements seemed to shift and realign, suggesting a living technology far beyond human engineering. The Nexus, Colnar announced, is more than a diplomatic center. It is the repository of our collective knowledge, our genetic memory. As they docked, Rowan felt a subtle pressure against her consciousness, not an invasion, but a gentle probing. Years of xenobiological training had prepared her for potential mental communications, but this was different. This felt like an invitation. Vendra moved closer, her translucent form casting a soft blue glow. "Your genetic structure contains anomalies," she said, both verbally and telepathically. "Anomalies that might be crucial to our survival." The statement hung in the air, pregnant with unspoken implications. Rowan knew her extensive research into adaptive genetic structures had been considered fringe science by her human colleagues. But here, in this moment, surrounded by the Zoriacs, she felt a sense of validation she'd never experienced before. The diplomatic chamber was a marvel of bioarchitectural design. Walls that seemed to breathe, floors that adjusted to each being's unique physiological needs. Holographic displays materialized and dissolved with mere thought, presenting complex data streams that would have overwhelmed a human mind. Director Colnar settled into a chair-like structure that appeared to grow from the floor, adapting to his unique body structure. "We have a critical problem," he began, "one that threatens the very existence of our species." Rowan leaned forward, her scientific curiosity fully engaged. "Tell me." The director's mental communication carried a weight of millennia-old desperation. The Zoriacs were facing genetic stagnation. Generations of precise genetic engineering had created a technologically advanced species, but at a terrible cost. Their ability to naturally reproduce had been systematically eliminated, replaced by complex genetic replication techniques that were now failing. "Your research into adaptive genetic restructuring," Vendra interjected, "suggests possibilities we have not considered." The implications were staggering. A human scientist might hold the key to saving an entire advanced alien civilization. But the path forward was fraught with scientific, ethical, and potentially personal challenges that none of them could yet fully comprehend. As the first holographic presentations began, showing intricate genetic models that danced and morphed before her eyes, Rowan Mitchell realized she was standing at the precipice of a discovery that could change everything, not just for the Zoriacs, but for humanity's understanding of life itself. The real journey was just beginning. The genetic research laboratory pulsed with an energy that transcended mere technological sophistication. Holographic strands of DNA twisted and transformed, revealing layers of complexity that would have driven most human scientists to madness. Dr. Fenrix, the Zoriacs' leading genetic specialist, moved with a precision that suggested more machine than organic being. "Observe," Fenrix said, their mental communication carrying a mixture of professional detachment and underlying desperation, "the fundamental breakdown of our reproductive matrices." Rowan Mitchell studied the holographic models, her fingers tracing invisible lines of genetic code. What she saw was both fascinating and terrifying. The Zoriac's genetic structure was a marvel of engineering, so perfectly designed that it had become its own prison. Generations of precise genetic manipulation had created a species of unparalleled intellectual and physical capabilities, but at a devastating cost. "You've designed yourselves into a genetic dead end," Rowan murmured, her scientific mind racing with possibilities and implications. Vendra, who had been observing silently, moved closer. Her form seemed to shimmer with an emotion that transcended the clinical environment. "We sought perfection," she explained, "and in doing so, we lost the most fundamental aspect of biological existence, the ability to truly regenerate." The Zoriac's reproduction had become a complex process of genetic replication, carefully managed through advanced technological interventions. But something was breaking down. Each successive generation showed increased genetic instability, minute degradations that, while imperceptible now, would lead to complete genetic collapse within a few more generations. Dr. Fenrichs projected a series of genetic models that demonstrated the progressive breakdown. Our attempts to maintain genetic purity have created a paradox, they explained. To survive, we must introduce radical genetic variation. Rowan understood the implication immediately. You need an entirely new genetic approach. Something that breaks your current reproductive paradigm. The laboratory fell into a charged silence. What Rowan was suggesting was more than a scientific solution, it was a fundamental reimagining of Zoriac's existence. The human genetic structure, Vendra said, her mental voice carrying a note of wonder, is remarkably different. Your species thrives on genetic diversity, on the beautiful chaos of sexual reproduction. Rowan couldn't help but smile. Chaos is often the breeding ground of innovation. The discussion shifted to the practical and ethical challenges. Introducing human genetic material into the Zoriac's reproductive system was unprecedented. It would require not just scientific breakthroughs, but a complete philosophical realignment of Zoriac's society. Dr. Fenrichs pulled up additional research models, showing potential integration strategies. Each projection revealed both incredible potential and massive risks. One wrong move could potentially destroy what remained of the Zoriac's genetic legacy. There's another consideration, Vendra said, her form shifting in a way that suggested emotional complexity. The process would require more than just genetic material. It would require a deeper connection. Rowan met Vendra's gaze, feeling something shift between them. This was no longer just a scientific challenge. It was becoming something deeply personal. Dr. Fenrichs observed the interaction with clinical detachment. Genetic integration at this level requires more than scientific precision. It requires a form of biological and emotional synchronization that our current understanding cannot fully comprehend. The weight of possibility hung in the air. A human scientist and a Zoriac's researcher, standing at the precipice of a discovery that could save an entire species, or destroy everything in the attempt. Are you willing? Vendra asked, her mental communication carrying layers of meaning that went far beyond the scientific challenge before them. Rowan took a deep breath. Let's rewrite the rules of biology. The Chamber of Transformation was unlike any medical facility in human or Zoriac's history. Organic crystals pulsed with bioluminescent energy, creating an environment that was part laboratory, part living organism. Council Elder Raltok stood as a silent sentinel, his ancient form a testament to the Zoriac's long-standing scientific legacy. The procedure is irreversible, Raltok warned, his mental communication carrying the weight of centuries. Once begun, there is no returning to what you were before. Rowan Mitchell looked at Vendra, their hands, human and alien, intertwined in a gesture that defied biological classification. The genetic integration process they were about to attempt was more than a scientific experiment. It was a fundamental reimagining of biological existence. Dr. Fenrichs activated the primary integration matrix, a device that seemed to breathe and pulse with its own consciousness. Holographic representations of their genetic structures danced around them, intricate patterns of blue and silver light that told the story of two species on the brink of a miraculous transformation. Your human genetic diversity, Vendra said, her form shimmering with anticipation, is both our greatest hope and our most significant risk. The procedure would not just be a simple genetic transfer. It was a complete biological synchronization that would fundamentally alter both Rowan and Vendra at the most basic level of their existence. Years of research, countless failed attempts, and the collective hope of an entire species converged in this moment. Rowan felt the first wave of genetic recalibration. It wasn't painful, not exactly. It was a sensation beyond physical description, like having every cell of her body simultaneously stretched, compressed, and reimagined. Her human DNA began to interact with Zoriac's genetic matrices in ways no scientist had ever conceived possible. Council Elder Raltok monitored the process with a mixture of scientific curiosity and deep ancestral anxiety. The Zoriacs had always controlled their genetic destiny with precise engineering. This approach, this wild, unpredictable method of genetic integration, went against everything their society had built. The human capacity for adaptation, Dr. Fenrix observed, is proving to be far more remarkable than our initial models suggested. Vendra's form began to change. Her translucent blue-silver skin developed subtle variations, tiny patches of complexity that spoke to the emerging hybrid nature of their genetic fusion. Rowan experienced similar transformations, her own skin developing subtle luminescent qualities, her neural pathways expanding with perceptions beyond human comprehension. "We are becoming something new," Vendra whispered, both verbally and through their now interconnected mental bond. The transformation was not just physical. Their consciousness began to merge, creating a hybrid awareness that transcended individual experience. Rowan could feel the collective memory of the Zoriacs, millennia of scientific achievement, cultural complexity, and genetic memory flooding her perception. Similarly, Vendra experienced the chaotic, beautiful diversity of human experience, the raw emotional complexity, the capacity for unpredictable innovation, the strength found in vulnerability. Council Elder Raltok watched in silent amazement. What was happening before him was more than a potential solution to the Zoriacs' genetic crisis. It was the birth of an entirely new form of intelligent life. As the final stages of genetic integration completed, Rowan and Vendra emerged changed. Not fully human, not entirely Zoriacs, but something extraordinary in between. "We have done it," Dr. Fenrix said, their mental communication carrying a note of triumph and trepidation. But at what cost? The chamber fell silent, the pulsing organic crystals the only sound, a heartbeat of potential, of a future yet to be written. Rowan looked at Vendra, their merged consciousness revealing a truth both terrifying and beautiful. They were now the bridge between two species, guardians of a genetic legacy that could either save or destroy everything they knew. The convergence chamber gleamed with an inner light that defied traditional understanding of illumination. Soft waves of bioluminescent energy pulsed through organic crystal structures, creating an environment that was simultaneously a laboratory, a sanctuary, and a womb of possibility. 6 cycles had passed since Rowan and Vendra's genetic transformation. The Intergalactic Council representatives gathered, their various physiological forms a testament to the diverse intelligence that populated the known universe. Tension crackled through the chamber, a mixture of scientific anticipation and deep-seated apprehension. Their child, if such a term could even begin to describe the being they had created, represented more than a medical breakthrough. This was a living embodiment of two species' potential for adaptation, survival, and hope. Emergence protocols initiating, Dr. Fenrix announced, their mental communication carrying a complex blend of professional detachment and profound emotion. The crystalline membrane began to dissolve, revealing a form that challenged every preconceived notion of biological existence. Translucent skin shifted between hues of silver and deep blue, with intricate neural pathways visible beneath the surface, a living map of genetic innovation. Eyes opened, not two, but a complex arrangement of sensory receptors that suggested perception far beyond traditional visual experience. Rowan and Vendra stood together, their merged consciousness creating a protective aura around their child. The being, neither fully human nor completely Zoriacs, represented the ultimate bridge between species. Council Elder Raltok approached, his ancient form trembling slightly. Centuries of genetic engineering, of pursuit of perfection, had led to this moment. "Explain," he demanded, his mental communication a blend of challenge and wonder. Vendra's response came not just through words, but through a complex transmission of genetic memory and emotional resonance. "Survival is not about perfection," she communicated, but about adaptation. About embracing the unknown. The child, whom they had named Zora, meaning dawn, in a language that blended human and Zoriac's linguistic roots, began to move. Each movement was a symphony of genetic potential. Neural pathways formed and reformed in real time, suggesting an intelligence that could learn and adapt faster than any known species. Intergalactic Council representatives from dozens of species watched in a mixture of fear and fascination. Some saw a miracle of scientific achievement. Others saw a potential threat to the carefully maintained balance of cosmic existence. A Krylonian diplomat, its crystalline form shifting with agitation, spoke first. This violates multiple genetic integration protocols. The risk to established biological boundaries is unprecedented. Rowan, her human essence now merged with Zoriac's perception, responded with a calm that spoke to their transformed nature. Boundaries are human constructs. Life finds a way, always. The child Zora turned, those complex sensory receptors taking in the environment. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. A wave of empathetic communication swept through the chamber, not through traditional mental transmission, but through a form of genetic resonance that transcended language. The representatives felt it simultaneously: hope, potential, the raw beautiful chaos of new life. Council Elder Raltok's ancient form seemed to soften. "We have been wrong," he communicated, his mental voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Perfection is not the absence of variation, but the embrace of it." Dr. Fenrichs projected final genetic analysis. The implications were staggering. Zora's genetic structure suggested not just survival, but evolution. The ability to adapt, to integrate, to become something entirely new with each generation. As the convergence chamber hummed with potential, Rowan and Vendra held their child, a living testament to the power of love, scientific innovation, and the endless possibility of life itself. The universe watched, and waited.